Wayne Davies. I'm a critic of Scientology, and I have followed your show and others for some time now. I decided that I would sign up for their free pamphlet, A Description of Scientology, so that I could see firsthand just what they were trying to peddle to those curious in their cult. I noticed that in the section about L. Ron Hubbard, it says that he was injured, but it does not claim that he healed himself using Dianetics. It does say that he used Dianetics on other injured people, but at no point does it clearly state that he healed himself using Dianetics. This is interesting. I know that Hubbard and the church have historically alleged that Hubbard claimed to have healed himself with Dianetics. Representatives of the church have gone on record stating that if this is not true, then Dianetics is not true, and therefore Scientology itself is less credible, or something to that effect. Yet this book does not make the claim that Hubbard healed himself with Dianetics, even though Hubbard himself made a big deal about this, and I believe the church used to push this lie quite a lot. Is this something that they have never pushed hard to new recruits? Is there a time where such a pamphlet would have made the claim that Hubbard healed himself? If not, do you think the fact that they are not doing so now is a result of the fact that the church knows that they cannot get away with making this claim? After all, anyone can check his war records these days. The church seems as though it is far too out of touch with reality in general to realize that they should stop making such claims, yet in this pamphlet they do not. What do you make of this? Okay, thanks for the question. And I mean, pretty obviously, there has been enough backlash against Hubbard's tall tales that they are trying to present a more generalized, less specific, less highfalutin kind of claims at the beginning. I mean, it's a fairly controversial and pretty serious claim that, you were lame, blinded from your war injuries, abandoned by your family, nobody was supporting you, and you figured out all on your own a science of the mind that enabled you to recreate, damaged cells or heal damaged body parts that were permanently injured and turn the whole thing around. That is quite a anyway, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, for just because of that, just somebody could have, fresh eyes could have come into the marketing area or whatever and said, oh my God, maybe we should tone this down a little bit. Surveys are often used in Scientology as well, and it could well be that they surveyed the general public now and, and came up with the idea that such claims are not a good thing to be putting in there. More likely, though, in addition to what I already just said, which could be factors in this, more than likely what happened is when Tommy Davis opened his big mouth, as you mentioned in the question, and said that Dianetics and Scientology would themselves be devaluated or disproven or debunked, if it was shown that Hubbard didn't do that, I think what that really did is it indicated to David Miscavige or somebody at that level that, oh my God, this is a real vulnerability that we had not really thought of that way before. We didn't really think of the consequences of this. And then once Tommy Davis said it out loud, well, he got canned. And I'm personally positive that the reason he was canned was for that statement, because it reveals a huge chink in the armor of Scientology's credibility. And of course, so do lots of other things when you get to the heart and truth of it. But the way Scientologists believe they are presenting themselves to the world is best foot forward, most positive light. This is the stuff you want. They really think that they've got their wagon hitched to a star, and that this thing is the most miraculous, wonderful stuff you could possibly imagine. So they don't want anything being put out there that's going to be instantly refuted, be instantly disproven or debunked or whatever. And that particular claim is pretty easy to debunk at this point. It sounds ridiculous because it is, and it didn't happen, and it can be proven that it didn't happen. So those are the kind of places where Scientology has to meet reality and has to adjust somewhat to that reality. And because it's frontline stuff, you see, it's not deep inside stuff. It doesn't matter what you think or what the whole world thinks about the Xenu narrative. They're not changing it. It's there. It's in Hubbard's handwriting. It's going to be there forever. And they can always tell you, well, you didn't actually get the real OT3, or you're only getting part of it, or you're only laughing at, this altered, modified version of it. And you got to get in, and you got to go all the way up and pass all the loyalty tests and pay all the money, and and get through all the gates in order to get to that material. So they can control that stuff. And they'll expect you at that point to believe it. But at the front gate, they can't do the hardcore, well, you have to believe this, or, we're going to destroy your life or destroy your family or something. They can't do that at the opening front gates. They got to tone it down. They got to bring the levels down a bit at that position. And so that's why they, as far as I can tell, that's why they would just go, okay, just take it out. We're not putting that in there anymore, and just sort of suppress the cognitive dissonance if it comes up, with the individuals. This sort of change, I'm sure, would come from Miscavige directly, and really, at the end of the day, I think it's really just a pretty clear response to the Tommy Davis exposure and threat. So